Hello everyone! Welcome to Quality Sewing and Vacuums How Do I? Today we are going to be learning how to make a Dresden fan. Let me tell you, this was so much fun to do, and I got to use a ton of fabric from my scrap box. So we all love using our resource center, right? From our boxes and boxes of scraps. This is the Dresden fan that I worked on this weekend, and I'm going to show you how to put that together. Okay, I went with kind of the sunflower effect. So we're going to be working on that. But first, we are going to start with our fabrics. So we'll do an overhead view. I've got a bunch of fabrics here. I was very ambitious this weekend and I made tons of little petals. And you can see all the different scraps that I had used and pulled out of my box. I just chose anything that looked yellow or orange. But you could also make these any color you wanted. You could use vintage t-shirt, or not t-shirts, like shirts, button-up shirts from grandpa or whatever if you wanted to make a memorial, or just use up your beautiful scraps that you have. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need to start with is your scrap. I've got a little scrap piece of fabric right here. And today I'm going to be using the new rotating mat from Sew Tights. And I really, really love this rotating mat. So I used this Quilter Select Dresden. It is a 9-inch Dresden right here. And I thought 9 inches, those were going to be really big petals. So I just used a 6-inch, or a 6.5. I made my petals 6.5 inches. So I'm going to show you how to make those 6.5. I'm going to set that aside for just a second. What you want to do, I've got the Sew Tights. The cool thing about the Sew Tights is that it's a magnetic cutting system here. I've got these little boosters, and these are magnetic. Isn't that so cool? Oh my gosh. I will tell you why I love these parts of the little boosters here in a second. And then this is a magnetic ruler here that when you lay it down, it actually sticks. You can see all my magnets are sticking to my cutting board right here. And then it's on a like a Lazy Susan ball bearing. Okay, I'm gonna get that off of there because it's magnets. It's so great. I love that. So the first thing that I'm going to do, the reason why I chose to do 6.5 is because this Sew Tights ruler is 6.5. So I thought, oh, that's going to be perfect. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stabilize my fabric, just like that. So now my fabric isn't going to slip around because I put my boosters down right there. Actually, this is a little bit wider than my ruler, so I'm going to fold this fabric in half. Right like that. There we go. Now I'm going to put my boosters down. 1, 2. All right. So I'll be able to cut just the 6 inches I need. And if you listen closely, oh, let me do that again. You can hear that it just clicks right down onto the board right there. And make sure I've got those on really nice and straight. If you do lots of layering, with multiple layers, like I would actually cut out a bunch of these all at one time. I take my little boosters and I put that right over the top. I'm going to straighten that up, fold that right over the top, rotate that around, give it a cut, and oh, I'm going to try that cut just a little bit more. Hold on. It only misbehaves while you're on camera, right? There we go. Got it all cut. And I got that little guy cut too. Apparently, I need to change my rotary blade. Okay. Ta-da! We have a 6-inch length cut. So the first thing you want to do is kind of figure out how wide long you want your petals. I cut this out at 6.5 here, but you can see that it comes out about 6 1/4 because we are going to stitch this little end in there. So just keep that in mind, that you take out about 1/4 of an inch after you sew it. Okay, I'm going to set that right there. We'll use that in a second. I'm going to take off my magnetic ruler. Okay, so I've got my fabric is 6 inches this way, or 6 1/2 inches this way. And then I'm going to boost my fabric here. And you can see that my fabric isn't going to go anywhere. But what about this ruler? This ruler doesn't have any magnets in it. And if I put it on there, it's going to just slide right off like that. What if we could use these little boosters on here? You totally can. So I boosted my fabric so it doesn't slide around. And whichever length you want to do, you want to put the narrow end on one side. I'm going to make sure that, there we go. I'm just going to put some of those boosters right over the top of that, and you can see that it works just the same. Now, what I do suggest, if you do use a ruler that doesn't have the magnets in it already, like this one does, that it has some sort of a sticky back gripper on the back, and Quilter Select always does, and they're so wonderful for that. Okay, we're going to give that a little cut there. I'm going to rotate it, give it a little cut there. All right, I've got my first cut. Can set that aside, and then we're merely just going to switch it to the other side, like that. You got the first cut started. And, oop, I put that on the wrong side. I'm going to rotate it there. Wasn't that so beautiful? Did you just love how smooth that goes around? I've got 2. Oh. And then let's see. I'm not sure, since this is a scrap, I'm not sure if this is wide enough. I'm going to move that up there. Oh, it is. I can get 3 cuts out of that. That's the beauty of using your scraps, right? Okay, so I've got my fabric stabilized there. I'm going to add some of those over top. I think I'm going to move that guy down there and give that one more cut. And this is a scrap piece. We can just toss that. And now we have our 3 pieces here that I can use with these guys. And wouldn't that be so fun? You can do it like every other color. Look at that. Look at how fun and bright and springy and summery that would be. You could do any holiday. You could do Christmas colors. You could do 4th of July colors, and just make it anything you wanted. If you look here at my sunflower, it's like 6 or 7 different colors. I just threw a bunch of them in there. So just to be fun and kind of boho, shabby chic. Okay, so what do you do once you get all these little pieces here? I'm going to set my my sew tights aside so you can see what we do next. Okay, the next thing, I'm gonna dump all my stuff over there. First, we'll put those over there. Ta-da, they're gonna stay. All right, the next thing we need to do is we need to make these into a little shape that looks like a tie. These are the same size, and I'm gonna show you how to get this little point right here. We're gonna jump over to the sewing machine. We're gonna wake it up, say, hello, machine. Good morning. Okay, so let's see. We're going to fold this in half. So I have the long part up here, the wide part of our little wedge here. And I'm going to fold that in half, right like so. And I'm just going to sew it 1/4 of an inch. Oh, hold on. My thread just came undone. It didn't like me. I went to stitch and it came undone. but that's okay. You can see how glorious it is to thread your needle. All right. Ta-da! We'll try that again. The one thing I like about this is I can touch this little foot that has an arrow that points down, and it's going to lift my foot just enough so I can slide my fabric underneath it, but I can still kind of keep an eye on where exactly my needle is going to be going. Okay, try that again. We're going to hope that it stays in there. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're going to lift it just a little and slide that out. And we're going to, you just keep going. You just do all of your little guys, one right after the other, so you can totally chain stitch these guys. Okay, I'll do 3 of these, right like that. We lift it up, push it back, do 1 more, and you just sew and sew and sew. All right. Okay, now I'm going to cut that. Yep. I've got, oh, didn't want to cut there. Okay. All right, so I've sewn a couple of these little guys, and they look like this. They're right sides together. I'm going to set these over here. Now I'm going to get out my ironing board right here. This is the fun Quilter Select flip one where it's double-sided. I think it's so cool. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is I kind of put my finger up there and give it a little finger press. And then you're going to open up this little, oh, I didn't get that very well. You'll open up that seam and you're going to press it with your iron, just like that. Now, I don't press the sides, I just want to press this middle seam right here. Okay, kind of get it, so it's right in the middle. In the instructions, they talked about giving it a little hat. And I thought, oh, okay, I guess it looks like a little hat right there, a little tiny hat. Okay, just press it up there. I like how this iron has like a really nice defined tip, so you can really see what you're doing. See, you give it a little tiny hat, I guess. All right. Now the instructions to make this are actually going to be with your Dresden ruler. I just followed it on there, and then I made some stuff up as I went. So we're going to go over what I made up, and I think it turned out pretty fun. So we'll iron 1 more right here. You get the idea. Right like that. Give it a little hat. Whoop. And then I'm going to get my little stiletto here. I'm going to put my thumb up in the very tip of that, and I'm going to hold the other tip with my finger. And I'm going to flip from my thumb to my forefinger. I'm going to take my little stiletto and poke out the tip right like that. Voila! Okay, and then you do that with the rest of these. Oh, that one almost went out all by itself. There we go. And last one, bloop, right like that. For some reason that thread didn't quite do what it needed to all the way, but I know what it needs to look like, and since this is going on the inside, I think it'll be all right. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of eyeball this so I see that this side is equal with this side. And then I'm going to take my iron and iron that little tip flat, like so. We're going to move over to the next one. We're going to iron that one too. And the next one, right like that. until you have a pile that looks like this of all these little ties. They're so cute, right? Okay, so we've got our copious pile of all these little wedges here, or petals, whatever you want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put these raw edges right sides together, like so. So I get 2 of those. I'm going to put those right sides together. Now, one thing that I wanted to share with you with my sunflower here is that you want to do a test one. If you've never done a Dresden before, this is a kind of a new technique for you. If you'll, I don't know if you can really see it, but in the middle, it kind of got a little puckery right there. And just around the middle. So that tells me, as I was putting it together, that I needed to, right around here, I needed to not have so much, if you sew with quilting terms, instead of doing it a scant of 1/4 of an inch, I needed to sew like on the outside of the 1/4 of an inch, apparently, as I was going, or I needed to pay a little more attention to when I was stitching all the way out and make sure that was really 1/4 of an inch, because this came out really great, but as it went towards the middle, it kind of got a little like gathery. But since I was doing a flower, it totally turned out just fine, because that's what flowers do, right? They're kind of gathery in the very middle. But if you wanted that really solid, good quilting flat surface, I suggest to do a test one first, just to make sure that you are getting all of that. So you can kind of see, if you're not quite doing it 1/4 of an inch when you start, or 1/4 of an inch when you end it. So anyways, that was just my tip of the day when you're doing a Dresden for the first time. Okay, we're gonna hop over to the machine and I will show you how you sew these together. You can do it either way, starting from the big end or the small end. I like to start from the big end only because that's the way the raw edge is going right there. Okay, so you just sew it down. Oh, sorry. I'm so used to the video being on the other side. Okay, so as I get to the end, I'm really going to be careful that I'm doing it right at that 1/4 of an inch. And it just cuts for me, which is beautiful. Except I think I need to redo my thread in there, but you get the idea. Okay, so I'm going to do this every other one right there so you can see that. All right, got those ones together. Move that thread out there. Do the same. And I've set up the machine so it will start and stop. Hold on, let it do its thing. I've set up the machine so when I start up here at the stitch, it will do a little knot for me up there, because this is going to be out and open, but this will be covered down at the bottom here. Okay, so we've got, let's say we've made our whole circle here. I'll save you that of having to watch me do the whole thing, but you get the idea right there. Okay, so next what you're going to do is you're going to iron out all of these seams. You're just going to open it just like so. You're just going to press it down like this. Very nice. And then we're going to do the other one. If I can open the seam, there we go. Okay. There we go. Oh, I'm really liking this like orange and light blue. It is super fun. Kind of a summery beach house look to that. That was just kind of random, but okay, now we have it started. Look at that. Look at how beautiful that is. And then it can just go all the way around. So what do you do if it's raw in the middle? Really quickly, I'm going to show you, if you don't want to put like a circle in the center, like I've made a center for my sunflower here, but let's say you want to just have it all finished. You can do the same thing that you did on this end. For this end, you fold it right sides together and you just stitch it. I'm going to use my stiletto for this. You're going to just stitch it shut. Put a little stitch there. Okay. All right. I'm going to trim all those extra pieces. Okay, you're going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to get my little stiletto out because that's kind of small to do with just my fingers. All right, I'm going to open up that seam, right like so. Squish it. There. I made its little hat. There we go. I'm going to give it a finger press first and then hit it with my iron, right like so. Try to get just the center of that. Whoop. Okay, cool. That was awesome. I'm going to trim these ends because you always want to trim your thread tails as you go. Put your thumb in there and finger, flip it over to your finger. Use your stiletto, point that tip out. Oh. And with the seam up, I'm going to finger press it where I think it looks pretty good. That looks pretty much in the center, right like that. I'm going to give it a little press like so. And this way, you have both ends finished on this end and this end. So when you go and you put all the pieces together, like so, this end is going to be finished as well. So when you go and put this all together, it will be finished edges on this side and finished edges, like it'll be your little zigzag on the outside and a little zigzag all the way on the inside. So you don't have to worry about covering up all these little ends right here. Okay, so the next thing that I did is I used some seam tape. And one of my favorites is the light Steam-A-Seam. I just love it because it doesn't gum up my needle. I can sew right through it. It does have a double-sided, and then it bonds permanently too. So I just took little strips and I just kind of put it every other thing on my sunflower here. So I have little strips of tape all the way around in here. And this side I haven't quilted down yet. I quilted all of this, but I didn't quilt this down, so you could kind of see where that I had taped this on, because you'll want to tape it down so it doesn't slide all over the place, and really stays in place because you've got all these zigzags. And so that really was helpful when I was putting this on here. Okay, so you're going to be quilting. I did a little blanket stitch. That's what it's called. This little blanket stitch all the way around. It was very simple, and I thought it tied it together really pretty. But when you blanket stitch onto like just a light cotton on the back, it will start to bunch and pull together unless you put some sort of backing on here. And over here, like it wasn't quite wide enough. I should have put a little strip right there because my stitching went out off the side right here, you can see. And it made a huge difference between these stitches and these stitches. They kind of puckered the fabric. So some of the things that I have, it doesn't matter really what you use. I just really love anything that is fusible. So I got the medium tearaway iron-on. And it's non-stretchy, and you want to make sure that you have that on there because you're going to get some really beautiful stitching and your fabric isn't going to suck in and kind of make this weird lumpy thing. But I also have this fusible woven from OESD. This one would just stay in with your fabric. You just iron it on the back. Like if I was going to turn this into a pillow, it would just stay with the fabric, and it would give it some stabilizer so the pillow would look nice and firm. And then, like I said, this one is tear away. And that's what I have on here. You can see that I started tearing away a little bit of it already. I like to kind of tear it to one of the stitches first so I don't stress out the stitching. But you can see that it just tears away, just like that. And I'll work on tearing the rest of it out. Okay, so I wanted to show you what I did with these little leaves on the side. All sunflowers have their beautiful leaves, right? So I was experimenting with other sizes. I wanted to see what would happen if I put a bunch of different sizes together, because all I was cutting out was the 6.5 inch, and I was like, I want to try like the 4 and the 3.5 and the 5 and everything. So what you do is you just cut your fabric a little bit narrower. Like if this was my fabric here and I wanted it 3 inches, I would just cut my fabric 3 inches. Let's say I cut that right like that. So now my fabric is only however much this is, like 4. It is 4 inches now from here to here. And then I can just cut this out right with my sew tights and just do that same idea. So I cut out a lot of different sizes. You can see I've got all these little petals, and I wanted it to look like kind of like a natural leaf that's all different sizes. So what I did is I made all these little sizes here, and then I sewed them all together. I sewed these edges, and where like this side is obviously longer than that, I stitched from the top all the way down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip that whole raw edge over there. So I do not know if this is an actual technique or if I just made this up. Well, I did. I just made it up as I was going. But I thought it made kind of a fun little leaf for, and this is the actual leaf that's going to go on that 4th corner right there. This one, since these two are the same size, I'm just going to open this seam up so that lays nice and flat, like so. Okay. And then I'm going along that stitching line that I made. I'm going to cut those seams off there. Okay. I'm going to grab my iron, and I'm going to press that all down. It's a little bit tricky because all of these little parts and pieces are going this way and that way. So being able to set your iron down on top is really great. Okay, just like that. Oh, I'm so excited to see what this looks like when it's ironed. Okay, and here's my petals. Ta-da! That's so fun. And this was just from scraps in my scrap box. Just pulling things out that I felt coordinated with each other. Okay, so how do I get it in this spot here? Since I already ironed some of it down, so only these little petals right here are really open. So what I did is, oh, hold on. I've got to do the raw edges. There's a little raw edge here and here. I'm just going to fold that over that 1/4 inch, like so. Give it a little press there. Now there's no raw edge there. Same thing. Fold it over 1/4 inch there. Give it a little press so those raw edges are folded under, because with the Dresden, it's an applique. where you put it on your fabric and then you stitch it down. Oh, one thing I forgot to say is I stitched in the ditch down all the center pieces of each one of these petals here. So it's solidified in the middle, so there's not going to be weird bubbling or anything. And then I did the blanket stitch all the way around there. Okay, so these are way longer. These are way longer than what will actually fit in there. So what I did is I kind of eyeballed it, and then I trimmed it. I'm going to find a pair of scissors right here. I eyeballed it, and I can see, well, I guess we can mark it a little bit first, huh? That would probably, since I have markers here, I will use a marker before I cut it. That way I don't cut the actual fabric. Okay, so I stopped. I think I want it more like right here. Okay, so I'm going to see that this is right here. And this goes to about right there. And this little dot right here is going to be right about there. So I'm going to trim it like this, and we're going to see how it looks. Right like this. And this is going, it's going to be under the petals of the flower. So it doesn't have to be super, like 100% fabulous looking. All right, just slide that right under there. It doesn't want to slide very well. Okay, got it under that one. Got it under that one. Oh, I like that. That is so fun. Okay, I can use some more of my tape, and I can put a little piece of tape under there so it solidifies the whole thing down. And with the petals on the side, I didn't bother stitching down the center pieces. All I did was do the blanket stitch all the way around the edges. Okay, and then with this center piece, I'll take this off for you. I'll put a little pin in this guy so he doesn't wander around. Now make sure that you do all of your stitching first before you do take off any of the fusible interfacing off the back and the stabilizer. So this is just a little circle that I made. I did kind of a gathering stitch all the way around, and I just pulled the edges in to make that circle. And I do have some tape on here in the center. You can see I've got all those raw edges in the middle, and this is where you can kind of see the puckering a little bit more. So this is like my practice round with this guy. And then I put that in the center. And I think I'm going to do kind of a wonky crazy stitch that's all over the place, going out from the center, going out from the center here, to give it kind of more of an organic, actual, like seeds looking in the middle of my sunflower. So, it kind of looks like a black-eyed Susan. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you are feeling inspired and you want to make your own family heirloom pieces out of scraps or maybe those shirt pieces. You can make this. I just made a block. You can make a whole quilt like this, or you can make this into a pillow. If you do this, look at how big that piece is. You can make a quilt really fast this way with this big of pieces. So thank you for joining me today. I can't wait to see your creations, and we hope to see you next Tuesday with Quality Sewing and Vacuum.